I have been watching a football game today in which the better of the two teams, at least by their beginning record, might be looking at this game as a trap game. The better of the two teams is the visiting team. And after winning the first game convincingly and the second game barely, it might have come into the stadium against the poorer of the two teams, thinking that it does not have to worry about this game. A trap would be that this better of the two teams takes the game rather nonchalantly and doesn't consider that it needs to remain faithful to its own task. I can see somewhat of a similar idea being warned against here in Psalm 76. And this psalm is a mixture. At the beginning, the speaker instructs the people as well as himself. You can see in the second stanza how he moves to an actual prayer to the Lord himself and addresses the Lord as one being radiant with light, and the continued expression after that. In the third stanza, he continues that acknowledgement to the Lord, speaking directly to the Lord. And at the end of the psalm, he actually challenges and exhorts the people to be faithful, to make vows, and then to fulfill such commitments. At the very beginning of this psalm, you can see that the writer says, God is renowned in Judah and Israel. His name is great. It picks up on an idea alluded to at the beginning of Psalm 75, in which the writer there says, God's name, the Lord's name, is near. You can see that the writer here says, and I pointed out before, that you are radiant with light, which I'll get to in a moment. But the nonchalant warning, or the warning against being nonchalant, is shown here. As you can see, it is you alone who are to be feared. And so it is as if the writer is challenging the people. We've come this far. God has been on our side. He has indeed protected us and upheld us in his hands, and he is on our side. But that doesn't mean that we can become lackadaisical without a commitment to him. We need to continue. It is you who alone, the writer says, the speaker says to God, who are to be feared, which in itself is an interesting statement, because in praying that prayer, he is in fact fearing the Lord and showing his respect and reverence to the Lord. Who can stand before you when you are angry? Pointing in to God's wrath, to God's judgment, which is spoken of in Psalm 75, and he brings up that idea at the end of this stanza. Surely your wrath against mankind brings you praise, which is an interesting idea, because you might think that the wrath of God, or at least many people who do not follow Jesus Christ, think that there's no way God could be a God worthy of praise is if he is wrathful. Make vows to the Lord. So the psalm writer is challenging his listeners, his readers, to be committed. We as disciples of Jesus Christ need to take such a challenge seriously. You can see that Paul delivers that kind of challenge to Timothy, even as he instructs Timothy, as you can see here in 1 Timothy chapter 6. He challenges Timothy to keep the command, that is the command to be faithful and to continue preaching his word without spot or blame. Notice what he says here. Jesus Christ will come. God will bring about this in his own time. God, the blessed and only ruler, the King of kings and Lord of lords, who alone is immortal and who lives in unapproachable light. Wow. So Paul picks up a similar idea, even though it might not be a direct reference back to this Psalm 75. He notices the same notion that light being God's holiness, being God's purity, being God's righteousness. Nobody has ever seen the Lord, but it's because of who he is that the people of God need to revere him and fear him. Jesus Christ, the one who lives in unapproachable light. Is not this the psalm? Is not this whom the psalm points to, even as the writer looked forward and anticipated the coming king to whom he and all his people needed to be faithful?